here, and your reports are the basis on which this committee really has its basis of operations. And today we wish to discuss our strategy forward in terms of dealing with these reports and the number of reports that we have, and the fact that we haven't done an awful lot of work on them. I have 17 reports before me, and I know that we had started working from the beginning in 2020, and we did some work there, and in 2021, I think 22 has not been as productive, primarily because it's the year when the review, the 5-yearly review of the Act was due, and we started that review by establishing the Joint Select Committee of both houses. And that review has been going on, and we've been receiving from the public various statements and proposals and recommendations, and we've had them here as witnesses. We have done our own bit of interrogation too of them and their ideas, and now we are in an advanced stage of dealing with the reports and to prepare for the Parliament a set of recommendations coming from your own recommendations which you sent in relation to particularly Section 53, and then the number of other recommendations that came from the special groups that have come before us, including the NIA, JAMP, I think JFL, as well as the private sector, and other groups which sent in their own thoughts by way of written submissions, whilst others came orally. So all of those are being taken into account. So I just wanted to broaden the appreciation of the work that we've been doing and why this this committee has not been as active, because most of us are also members of the JSC, and we have been working very feverishly at that. So I want to also include in my opening comments a special welcome to the clerk and deputy clerk and the team from Parliament who have joined us today. Yes? Okay. And also to indicate that the 17 reports that we have, in our earlier discussions, we had asked the Commission to offer some technical support in assessing the value of each report and to pick out the salient points, to give us a sort of a summary of the reports, because some of the reports are very voluminous and it's difficult for us as a committee to forage through and to be able to respond effectively and well to even some of the key points that you raised in it. So we had asked that you prepare for us summary of the reports so that we could use that summary for our own knowledge, information, and to guide us in terms of our discussions with you when you come before us. And so on the way forward, I'd want to see that happen for us to do what I call the more efficient investigations that are necessary following on the reports that come before us. Finally, I want to indicate that the committee wishes that the public understands that ours is not a job to try to in any way emasculate or otherwise to denude the effectiveness of the Commission. Ours is a job to ensure that the Commission functions efficiently, effectively, and well, and that it remains the bulwark and the bastion and the guardian of our democracy and our integrity. So we, in every effort and in every response, seek always in our reviews to add value. And I wish that point to be very clearly understood, not just in this room, and not just to those who are listening, but also those who write and comment and make statements in regards to how this committee and the Parliament itself operates. As chair, and I want that to be very clear, that as long as I'm chair, this committee of Parliament will adjudicate in the best interests of the people of Jamaica at all times, and that we are committed to probity and fair play, transparency, and we are committed to upholding the rules and the laws that we ourselves have established to enable the accomplishment of those objectives. So whatever happens on my watch, I'm accountable. Okay. Having said that, we go to the minutes. The minutes are before you. Take it they have been read. Do I have a confirmation? Member Julian Robinson, seconded by Member Paulwell. Matters arising from the minutes, any? Yes. Okay, there being no matters arising from the minutes, we go to new business. And in dealing with the new business, of course, I had earlier indicated in my opening remark that we are going to spend a little time today discussing the way forward in terms of how we plan to enable a completion of these 17 reports, because I think it is critical. The backlog is a little heavy. We're going to have several meetings, team planned, and I just want to indicate that these meetings are going to happen in between the Joint Select Committee meetings dealing with the review of the IC legislations, but also to deal with the Disclosure Act, and we have to complete those in terms of a timetable that I have set by the 31st of May. We want to make sure that we have completed the total review of the legislative recommendations, amendments, so that the Parliament can have a report in early June on the whole matter. So I open the floor for any discussion.
Chairman, I have some questions on process in relation to how the Integrity Commission works, and I'd like to share my understanding and then ask the questions in relation to the Integrity Commission. So a complaint comes in which goes to Mr. Beresford. Mr. Beresford decides whether it is sufficient based on some criteria to refer it to the Director of Investigations, correct? The Director of Investigations does his investigations and concludes it. First question, is his report subject to a review by the directors or the board members of the Integrity Commission, or does he have sole authority, having completed an investigation, to make a decision about whether it is tabled or referred to the Director of Corruption Prosecution? So that's my first question. I don't know who is going to take that.
Chair, could I respond?
Please go ahead.
But first, with just some opening remarks, Chair, if you could permit me. Chair, I want to thank you for having us here, inviting us. We're very grateful to you and the honorable members of the committee. Our posture is the same as we have expressed in the past. We see the Oversight Committee as a very, very important regime to ensure that the Integrity Commission, despite the fact that it's an independent commission of Parliament, it's subject to oversight. It's subject to a certain level of checks and balances and accountability. After all, we're the ones who have invested with the responsibility to ensure certain standards of good governance, integrity on the part of all public officials. It therefore stands to reason that we too should be subject to oversight. So I just want to register that our position, we're in full support of the statements that you have made, and I want to assure you that today we're here to support those positions, and we're going to be forthright, we're going to be open, we're going to be transparent. We will answer all the questions that you have to ask us. We have nothing to hide. Because as you said, Chair, at the end of the day, our objective, whether the Integrity Commission or working in concert with the Oversight Committee, must be one which rebounds to the benefit of Jamaica and Jamaicans, and securing the objectives of the Integrity Commission Act, which succinctly put is to ensure the highest standards of good governance, integrity, compliance among those in Jamaica who discharge public functions, including ourselves. So I just want to state that right off the bat. We will answer all your questions. We are an entity which is a bit unique in its corporate governance structure. We report to a board of commissioners in whom resides the final authority, quite a lot of matters. And anything we can answer, we will answer. Questions that we can't answer factually, we will ask that you allow us to defer it to the Board of Commissioners so that we can get a considered response from them. I have noted the comment that you made, Chair, about providing assistance, and I'm sure Director Kevin Stevenson, or Director of Investigation, has taken note. We have a Parliament liaison officer on our organization structure, but that is someone who is here to represent the Commission in the absence of the officers. But in terms of summarizing investigation reports, the best persons to do that, or the officers, will be officers from the Investigation Division. So that is noted, and we'll make sure that it happens. What I will ask you for, Chair, is to give us a list of the investigation reports that you plan to address in this forum, in the order that you plan to address them, and the time frame, and I will ask Mr. Stevenson, or Director of Investigation, to ensure that you're provided with the requisite summaries in advance so that you can do your work. I just wanted also to let you know that I bring greetings from the Chair of the Commission, the Honourable Seymour Panton, and his fellow commissioners to whom we report. And I would just take just a couple of minutes, Chair, to introduce my colleagues who are here today. Craig Beresford, to my right, he's our Director of Information and Complaints. Mr. Kevin Stevenson, our Director of Investigation. If you follow the train of movements, as you said, member, things start with Craig and we'll go to investigation. And then if the situation warrants, it goes to the Director of Corruption Prosecution, which is Mrs. Keisha Prince Kamika, who is to my immediate left. Mr. Ran Evans, his division addresses a very critical role. You fight corruption two ways. You can wait until it happens, and you go chase after to see what happened, and then deal with it, or you can prevent it from happening. You create an environment that deters corrupt conduct. And that's Director Ran Evans' portfolio. He has a very long title, Director of Corruption Prevention, Stakeholder Engagement and Anti-Corruption Strategy. But it's a critical function of the division of the Commission. You will not see it in the Integrity Commission Act. But the commissioners have a residual power to create additional divisions, and that is one that we have created. Mrs. Evian Ortiz, our acting legal counsel. Ms. Nordia Johnson. Nordia, I don't know if she's up in the gallery. She is a parliamentary public sector liaison officer. Then we have Shania Parks, and Mrs. Alicia Brown-Smalling, two managers in the investigation division, two senior officers in the investigation division. So I just also want to make one other comment, Chair, and I'll do it very quickly. And it's important that Jamaicans understand that the Integrity Commission has a very unique structure. When I say unique, that's an understatement. It, unlike your typical public or private sector entity that has a president, or a chief executive officer, a general manager, managing director, or executive director, whatever you want to call that person, to whom everyone in the organization ultimately reports. And then that person reports to a board of directors who handles policy. The Integrity Commission is not like that. It's not like that. In essence, the 4 statutory directors that I've alluded to, and myself, occupying the position of executive director, we all have statutory functions which are prescribed by law. And each of us report straight up to the board. They don't report to me. I report directly to the board, and all the statutory directors report to the board through a subcommittee of the board. The board composes of 5 commissioners, and each subcommittee has 3. So we will have one for information complaints. It's chaired by Auditor General Pam. We have one for investigation and prosecution. That's chaired by retired Justice Lloyd Hibbert. And we have one for corruption prevention. That's chaired by the chairman. And then we have 2, we have one for human resources and governance, and we have one for audit, finance, and technology. So it's very important to understand that, and as we speak today, the importance of it will come through. Because under Section 29, I'm accountable to the board, and under Section 30, each statutory director is accountable to the board through the committees to which they report. And they're responsible for what happens in their division. And so we have independent functions. And if you will, you could say we have 5 executive directors reporting to a board. So I will stop here.
Right. Thank you, but you gave us quite a treatise there on the structure and functions and the authority on which you act, and that's quite appreciative, especially that we are having audiences outside of this room. And it's good for everybody to appreciate that you are properly staffed and that you have capacity. But there's a question that the member did put.
It's the start of a number of questions. So I want you to answer that, and then I'm going through, because I want to understand the process flow and how decisions are made by the Integrity Commission. So you can answer that, and then I'll have some more.
After that, Mr. Chairman, can I be allowed to, after that member is completed, I'd like to ask a few questions.
Just for good order, members, you know how I operate this committee. Exactly. So we will make note of that, member, and we definitely will speak after.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Member Robinson. I think it's best that I direct the question to our Director of Investigation so that he can walk through his process. Thanks.
Thank you, Executive Director. Good afternoon, Chair and members. To your point, Member Robinson, you inquired as to the process through which complaints have to travel from the onset to the logical conclusion. The Act, Section 37, treats with who may make a complaint, what constitutes a complaint, and to whom the complaint should be made. In terms of our internal processes, notwithstanding the fact that a complaint may be made to...
You can, for interest of time, pass that side. I'm comfortable with how complaints are made.
Okay.
What I want to know is when they get to you, right? Mm-hmm. One, the basis on which you make a decision to investigate. What's the criteria? Whether you're investigating something 10 years ago, 2 years ago, how you made that decision, and is that your decision or is that a decision in conjunction with the commissioners? And then once you have determined that you're investigating it, you have done a report, is that report subject to the review of the commissioners?
Right. So the complaints are referred to me by the Director of Information and Complaints under 46. And once I receive the complaint from the Director of Information and Complaints, there is a test that must be performed under Section 47 of the Act. And under that section, I'm required to consider the seriousness of the conduct which is being alleged, whether the matter is frivolous and/or vexatious, and whether another entity is treating with the complaint, and the Commission therefore would not need to expend any resources to treat with that matter. Once that test is performed, as a matter of fact, let me go through this. As soon as a complaint comes to the division, what is done is an assessment of the complaint. And under Section 47, the Act provides that preliminary inquiries may be conducted to make a determination as to whether an investigation is warranted. Presently, there is no complaint at all that comes to the division on which a preliminary inquiry is not conducted, unless it is so clear that an investigation can be commenced just on the basis of the complaint that was received. Once that preliminary inquiry is completed, then a decision is made as to whether the matter is one that warrants an investigation. And there are several timelines that we could ascribe to this process. So let us say the preliminary inquiries could take anywhere from 7 days, 2 weeks to 3 months. Usually when the complaint is referring to a clear breach, it takes no time at all to commence an investigation. And once that investigation commences, the inquiries, of course, would take place. And once the investigation is completed, I am required under Section 54 to submit the report of investigation through the Office of the Executive Director to the board or to the commissioners. When they receive the report, all 5 commissioners review the report. And usually there is a discussion at the committee stage or the committee meeting, which the executive director alluded to earlier. The commissioners and that committee, they review the report. We probably would hold meetings, special meetings, if necessary, depending on the complexity of the matter. All commissioners also provide their views on the conclusions and the recommendations in the report. Once there is...
Let me just ask here. So the commissioners, by a majority, could make a determination that what you have the report you have referred, you have completed an investigation. They could agree or disagree with the conclusions that you have formed and indicate that they so either in writing or otherwise, or verbally.
The commissioners may disagree with the conclusions or recommendations. Of course, there are consultations had and the necessary information. If they require further information, one way or the other, then that is provided. But ordinarily, once there are suggestions as to what actions could be taken, or it's usually around whether we should include another element or something is not relevant, for example, then that is done, and then the report goes back to the commissioners, and then they would give their final approval for the report to either be referred to the Director of Corruption Prosecution or to be sent to the houses to be tabled. Now,
sorry, just for clarity. So the decision on whether something is referred to the DCP is the purview of the commissioners and not yourself?
well, I think the Act sets it out quite clearly.
Or
I do
you
not.
can make a recommendation?
I make a recommendation, and to the Commission, not to the Director of Corruption Prosecution directly. It is the commissioners who will direct that the report be submitted to the Director of Corruption Prosecution for consideration.
Okay.
But it is important also to look at the language that is used in the legislation. It seemed to me, based on what is contained in Section 54, that once the recommendation is made, then the report should be referred to the direction of corruption prosecution once there is
Once
an
a
act of
recommendation
corruption.
is made by you?
Yes.
Okay, so in essence, it says the language is should or must?
So let me just go through it. Whereupon the completion of an investigation, the Director of Investigation is satisfied that there are reasonable grounds for suspecting that 3A, there has been a breach of any code of conduct by a public official or a parliamentarian. The Director of Investigation shall, in his report to the Commission, in the case of public officials, recommend to the Commission that the matter be referred to the relevant public body for appropriate action. In the case of a parliamentarian, recommend to the Commission that the matter be referred to the Speaker of the House of Representatives or the President of the Senate, as the case may require, for appropriate action. And this is probably what you're more interested in. B, 3B. An act of corruption or an offense under this act has been committed. The Director of Investigation shall, in his report to the Commission, recommend that the matter be referred to the Director of Corruption Prosecution, who may take such action as may be deemed appropriate. 4, subsection 4, where the report to the Commission has a recommendation under subsection 3, the Commission shall submit it to Parliament for tabling, excluding such matters as the Director of Corruption Prosecution regards as likely to prejudice the prosecution, if any proceedings in relation to the matters referred in the report.
Okay. Okay, so there's a lot of shall in it, and you made the recommendation, the commissioners should, based on your recommendation, support that, but they still have the right to say we don't believe it rises to the threshold of something which is prosecutable, and they can do that. Can they do that?
Indeed, at the level of the commissioners, there is a significant amount of experience.
That's why I'm asking. You have two retired judges.
Indeed.
Who would know what enough information to sustain a prosecution.
Yes, indeed. And their discussions and the recommendations of the commissioners is something that is treated with as a matter of urgency and significance in determining what goes forward.
All right. Can I now come to the DCP who receives a recommendation? Again, is it the sole authority in law for you to make a determination about whether you proceed with a prosecution or not? And in a scenario where you decide to proceed, can the DPP overrule the decision you have made?
Yes, Member Robinson, good afternoon. That is so. Section 34 is clear that there is a level of autonomy that the DCP enjoys, but subject to 34.4, the Commission may make recommendation or may ask the DPP to provide a ruling, and 35.5 indicates that it would be the DPP's ruling that would prevail and be binding.
All right. When you have made a ruling on a matter, let's say you have decided not to proceed, you don't believe it is prosecutable, and you have submitted that ruling in writing, where does that ruling go? To the commissioners?
It does, through the ED to the commissioners under confidential cover.
And then the commissioners would make a determination about how to treat with that ruling?
Yes. They would certainly review it and offer their comments. And invite, of course, any need for clarification and take a decision as necessary, bearing in mind that there is 34.4 as an option available to them.
Okay. So in a case, and I don't know who will answer this, a report has been made by the Director of Investigations. It is sent through the commissioners to be tabled in Parliament. A ruling has been made by you to determine that it is not something that you believe you can proceed with a prosecution. Both of those things go to the commissioners for the commissioners to determine where those reports are sent. I'm asking.
Well, when you say where those reports are sent, the section 54 indicates that tabling, once the report of the Director of Investigations is concluded, notwithstanding the nature of the recommendation, tabling should happen. The delay comes where the DCP, the Director of Corruption Prosecution, assesses if there's anything in that report that would necessitate redaction that might likely prejudice a prosecution. So for that to happen, the assessment is made whether or not there is a prosecution, and then whether or not redaction is to happen. Once that is concluded, I then pass the report through the ED to the commissioners, both for tabling and for my ruling to the commissioners for an assessment to be made. The ruling is not typically passed for tabling.
Well, I was going to ask that. Is there anything in law that states that your ruling has to be tabled?
No, there is no requirement for tabling.
And there is nothing in your practice or how you operate that, particularly in a case where an investigation would be done, a ruling has been determined, that there is a protocol about how the ruling should be handled in a case like that?
Well, I will defer to the ED with regard to subsequent board decisions that were taken, but prior to February, routinely what would happen, rulings would not be tabled.
All right, ED, maybe you can help me here. So, and we have a case that we know of. The Director of Investigation does a report, it is sent to Parliament to be tabled. The Director of Corruption Prosecution has done a ruling, and I don't know where in your process that report would go. So can you help me there?
Sure, Member Robinson. As I indicated before, it's important to recognize that the divisions are separate and independent. The Executive Director is essentially a conduit. Section 54 requires the Director of Investigation to send his investigation reports to the commissioners through me. That's typically done via email, and as I get email, I send it to them, and then we use another method to send. The report is password protected, and then I use another method to send the password, which I can't disclose, that he sends to me to the commissioners. So that's the process. And once you're finished, it comes back, and I have an instruction to table it. With respect to the ruling, it's a similar situation. As the DCP indicated, the ruling is sent to me or through me to the commissioners. That's a full ruling. It's sent on a confidential cover, private and confidential, and I do the same thing. I transmit it to the commissioners. Now, the practice that has prevailed prior to February, and February is very important. Actually, I think it's January, and I presume it's a spillover, is that in the report that goes to Parliament, there's a transmitter letter, and that transmitter letter is addressed to the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, and to the Clerk of the Houses. And in that transmitter letter, if the DCP has determined that she will not charge, there is a three-liner.
Just an indication as to the course, Member Robinson. So it's stated that whether or not prosecution is intended.
All right, let me ask you a question.
Just by way of procedure, the chair, so the questions, thank you.
My apologies, Chair.
Yes, Chair. So let me ask you, Executive Director, is the Commission of the view that tabling the ruling by the DCP and the report from the Director of Investigation simultaneously, would that be a breach of any of the existing laws that govern the work of the Integrity Commission?
Thanks, Member Robinson. For that particular question, the Commission has already answered that question. They issued a statement on February 17, I believe it was, and the chairman, retired Justice Seymour Panton, he made it quite clear that in the Commission's view, they have to do separate, it has to be done separately. Now, I would believe that he's referring, and perhaps you want to comment on that he's referring to the full ruling, because the first time that that was done was in the case of the Westcon report. Prior to that.
Through you, Chair. That is so, Member Robinson. So normally when discussions are had with regard to process concerning rulings, the reference is to the reasoning, the document that details the considerations and ultimately what the decision is. And up to that point, the decision was taken that those rulings would not be tabled.
What is important, Member Robinson, and I want to be very, through you, Chair, to be very clear and explicit on this. What has happened prior to February is that, as the DCP indicated, in the transmittal letter, which accompanies the investigation report to Parliament, is a 3-liner statement indicating what the decision of the DCP is. That has been done in a number of matters. This year, January 5, I think it was, that's the fire trucks report, the Petrojam 3 report, and there's a concern about that process. I personally have raised it. Here is my concern, and I want to put all the cards on the table.
So I just want to be clear. Yeah. Your concern is about the transmittal letter, which states that the matter has been referred for prosecution, and the DCP has ruled A or B.
Transmittal letter, which basically says to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House and the Clerk of the Houses, it's a cover letter. So we are submitting this report to you for tabling and pursuant to whatever provision of the law. And in that transmittal letter is a brief statement, 2 or 3 lines, which just indicates what her position is. It's not the full ruling. And the difficulty that I personally have had with that is that it really goes nowhere, because when it comes to Parliament, what we have seen is that the report, investigation report, is tabled, and there is no notice of what is in the transmittal letter.
So let me just ask you a question. In the case of Westcon, so a transmittal letter was done accompanying the report?
Initially, yes, and you know.
When you say initially, what do you mean?
Okay, on the, let me pull up this. I want to give him the date. Yes, the Westcon report and the transmittal letter to Parliament, or the transmittal letter accompanying the report, was done on the 16th of January. Now,
just for clarity, indicating that the matter was referred and the DCP had indicated she would not pursue a prosecution. Is that correct?
Initially. So what had happened, the tabling had started, or the intention to table, and on the date indicated, that initial letter with the indication was sent. Subsequent, a request was made, however, for that to be pulled back to allow the Commission as an opportunity to properly digest the ruling. The second tabling letter did not have the indication, because at the time the matter was with the commissioners under review, and there was the suggestion that that could change, or certainly could be subject to whatever processes are available to them. So that's the distinction.
The first letter was sent on January 16th indicating you had made a ruling.
Yes.
You said you then asked that letter to be pulled back. Not when I say asked, meaning the commission. The commission requested instructed that it be withdrawn, yes. And then a second letter was sent on what date with the report?
The second submission was on the 13th of February. And then
but that didn't indicate anything in terms of the ruling.
Exactly, because the commission had pulled back everything so that they could deliberate on the ruling. And
anyway, that's not.
And then, as we're all aware, I think the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, was the state opening of Parliament. and the report was tabled that afternoon.
So, having learned from this experience, what is the procedure that the Integrity Commission intends to adopt in scenarios where a report has been tabled, it has been referred to the DCP has made a decision that she won't pursue a prosecution? What is the mode of operation that the Integrity Commission will adopt?
Member Robinson, that is still an open question. The board meets once every month, the first Monday in every month. The next meeting will be April 3, and that's a matter which will be on the agenda. It's a lingering concern, and I had mentioned two other reports, the fire trucks and the Petrojam reports. Those were tabled on a cover of a letter dated January 5th in the same manner as the Westcon matter was tabled. The report was first tabled. But she had a ruling, an indication of her ruling, but that has not reached the public, and that is my concern. Speaking for myself...
Hold on.
Let me finish.
No, hold on. I just want to be clear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You're saying that a cover letter was sent to the Parliament addressed to the Speaker, the Senate, etc., indicating what the ruling of the DCP was.
A three-liner.
A three-liner.
Typical thing that happens.
But that was not tabled in the Parliament?
The report is tabled.
But not the
statement in the letter apparently has gone over everybody's head. And that is a concern that I have. Because as it stands right now, is that she hasn't published her ruling, or the
No, I understand. She has just indicated what she plans to do.
Actually, it's two lines on one.
Right.
Word, right? But that was, for example, January 5. Today is March 28, and nobody knows. Now, part of our governance arrangements is that every month I have a meeting with the 4 statutory directors, and immediately after with all the directors. We have 3 other operational directors. And in the January meeting, I raised the concern. Yes. I raised the concern that it's a troubling issue for more than one reason. One, there's no transparency. You have a report, investigation report, which could run into over 100 pages. You have a ruling, but we're not publishing the ruling. Nobody sees the ruling. What is actually submitted is a 2 or 3 liner giving an indication of a ruling, but no details. That's one. 2, 6 months from now, somebody's going to call us from, I don't know, Gleno, and they say, well, DCP, where have you reached on these 2 matters? Because investigation report was tabled in Parliament indicating that the matter has been referred to you for consideration for prosecution. Unbeknown to everybody, she has already done her job.
Sorry, Madam Clerk, I need your help here. You have to help me here. So, and I don't know the process, I'm asking. Because the cover letter comes to 3 people, the Speaker, the Senate President, and the Clerk. The cover letter has in it a decision made by the DCP. Can you guide me about the process as to why that would not be shared the same time the report is tabled? Because that's, in essence, what the Executive Director is saying.
There's always a cover letter. And for clarification, it is sent, the Act demands that the report be sent to the President and the Speaker for tabling. Those matters are copied to the Clerk. I have to get them signed off by the Speaker and the President to table them. On to the cover letter. We generally get a cover letter, and that cover letter is laid on the table with the report, but it is not the report of that, and we don't say and a cover letter stating X, Y, Z, but it is there because we get one copy. I get a copy, the Speaker gets a copy, the President gets a copy. They would peruse that, and I wait on them to sign off on table. So, and we don't generally copy them. Members may ask for a copy. But the letter is not read out in Parliament. Just the fact that the report
Madam
is
Clerk,
there.
I mean, there are two kinds of cover letters. There is a please say attached report cover letter, which nobody going to ask for. But if there's an indication from the DCP, which is material and which affects whoever is involved in that report, that has to be something which is shared with the report when it is tabled in Parliament, must. Because it is prejudicial to the individuals who are on the investigation. And it also raises questions about whether the DCP has done her work or not. Yes, one.
No, sorry, please.
I'd say I have a follow-up.
Right. So if you yield?
No, not yield. I'd say I just want, where that's concerned, because I want to raise it before him. I'm not too sure how helpful that cover letter would have been, based on what he said. He said 2 lines. Is it possible, Chairman, through you, I don't know how helpful it would be. The impression might be given that the cover letter contains things and those things were hidden. I'm not too sure. Is it possible through you, if the clerk can retrieve a copy of that cover letter for us before we leave here, that we can see exactly what is being referred to?
Right. So I think
Chair, I could be of assistance to your honourable
No,
colleague.
I'm asking for a copy from the clerk.
I have copies, but if you don't want
No,
them,
not from you. I'm asking for the clerk.
Okay.
You said it was sent to Parliament, so I don't need your copy. The one I'm to see is the one that came to Parliament and received by them. Chairman, through you, is it possible for the clerk to retrieve a copy of that letter for us?
Very well, Member Warmington. The request is made. Madam Clerk, would you indicate your... Pardon?
My secretary to take it down.
You are.
And just for clarification, and the act is before us, and we need to state whether it says the ruling and the report. And if the letter that comes, the cover letter that comes, says that the ruling and the report should be tabled.
Well, let me ask.
No, what she's seeking
is guidance on that.
Guidance
and I would like to know,
the act requires.
does the act at all make any reference to how the ruling from the DCP should be treated?
as DCP indicated, it's totally silent on rulings. I don't think the word ruling is there. It's in the act.
So,
well, I think it speaks. I think it speaks to the review that we're currently doing, and I think it gives us some basis. And this is why this type of discussion is so important, and it's why it's so key for you to be here, because I know there are gaps that we have to deal with. As you know, the framers had in mind a new, young, fresh, fledgling entity law. It would, of course, over time, be subject to periodic review. And the reviews are now taking place. And I just make the point to further emphasize that our public ought not to believe that a review means that there is any intention to defang or to reduce or to emasculate. A review is about looking at all the elements that have gone into what now drives our process and to see how we can tweak it for improvement and to add value along the way.
Well, let me state, Chairman. I would, whether it is in law or it becomes part of your modus operandi, in any scenario where a report is referred to the DCP, that cover letter should explicitly state that this report has been referred to the DCP, and it should indicate in the same summary whether the DCP has made her ruling about whether to proceed or not. And Madam Clerk, I'm not putting it on you because there are two other, the Speaker and the Senate President are also involved in this process. That cover letter, when it has something as substantive as that, has to be tabled at the same time as the report. Or if not the same time, 2 minutes later. Has to be.
Yes, and I also say that the letters that come to us must be included in the cover letter to say table the report and the statement, because since the Act asks for the report alone.
So I think, Chairman, our recommendation, given that it should be codified in the law, right? But
we're taking note of these, members. You see, this is why these discussions are so important for us, because we are in that process of review, and we're looking at all the gaps, and we're going to bridge those gaps. Under my watch, we're going to make it a better and more appropriate instrument for the prosecution of the integrity of this country. No question about it.
All right,
Chair,
final question.
Could I just make one comment, just to clarify? The paragraphs that you mentioned that you deem appropriate to be in such a letter are in the letter. It's a standard form letter. Chair, you have raised a good point, and this is why I said at the outset that we subscribe to the role of the Oversight Committee and also the Joint Select Committee, which has been established to review the Integrity Commission Act. The very fact that there's a provision in the Integrity Commission Act for a Joint Select Committee to review it periodically and no later than 5 years means that we don't live in a perfect world. It's a new piece of legislation, and obviously it was Parliament's intent to have the newly established Integrity Commission discharge its functions and then see how it operates. You're going to come up with conflicts. You're going to come up with ambiguities. You're going to come up with different interpretations of the provisions. And this process helps us to identify that. I want to put it on the record that although the Commission right now has not been able to, well, we haven't had an issue in terms of how we address rulings. The fact is that the Commission is committed to having the Parliament adjust the law to come up with a resolution to the issue. So if it is that the Parliament deems that the most appropriate resolution is to have the report tabled simultaneously with the ruling, the Commission has absolutely no objection to it. And the Chairman, Seymour Panton, has asked me to indicate that. So, you know, we are ad idem with you, Chair, with that particular matter. But going back to the question that you asked, Member Robinson, as to how we deal with rulings, the simple point is that, as I said, next week, Monday, the issue will come up again. And I can't tell you how it will be resolved, but as it is right now, the Commission's position is that it will not table full rulings, and that's the Commission's position. And to go further, and this is substantiated by a statement of February 7th, it's public 17, February 17th, its public statement, is that the law does not require the tabling of rulings. No, that's a legal perspective, but you know that's their province. And at the same time, they're saying if the Parliament chooses to amend the law to require the Commission to do it simultaneously, then they have no difficulty with it.
The issue, I don't think there's a big debate about full ruling versus summary. The critical thing is that once a decision has been made by the DCP, that decision be communicated. The full extent of the ruling can come later on. Certainly if she decides to proceed with a prosecution, then you can't, of necessity, you have to redact stuff, etc. So I don't think there's debate about whether the full ruling should be tabled. It's just that once a decision is made, then that must be communicated at the same time as the report, or if not, 2 minutes later.
It's done, and that's the point I'm making, Member Robinson. That is what the Commission has been doing up until the time of the Westcon ruling. I have the transmitter letters right here.
Okay. My final thing, Chairman, I would like an overview of where you are in terms of the number of investigations on the number of issues on the investigation, what has been completed, etc. You receive a budget of 1.2. Well, no, all right. Well, I think the Member Warmington had wanted the clerk to read the letter the transmitter letter, which the executive director was sent. You have it, Madam Curtis?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Minister Warmington had asked to see a copy of it later, and I got 3 and I sent. And they are duly stuck in the one report that is laid on the table there.
Look here. The first report, there are 3 reports here. There are 3 reports here. And one deals with the issue. It said the member from Northwestern St. Elizabeth. There's no reference here to anything about to the Director of Corruption Prosecution. The what?
So that should be tabled.
I'm looking at the report.
You mentioned how many reports came here with cover letter stating that, and it's kept silent. That's what it said. Those are 3, and there's no such stuff. This one, it says, the only part it refers here, subject section 54.3b Act of expressly provided, where upon completion of investigation, the Director of Investigation is satisfied that there are reasonable ground for suspecting that an act of corruption or an offense under this act has been committed. The Director of Investigation in his report to the Commission recommend that the matter be referred to the Director of Corruption Prosecution. Additionally, 54.4, the reference act provides that where the report to the Commission as a recommendation under Section 3, the Commission shall submit to Parliament for tabling, excluding such matters as the Director of Corruption Prosecution regard as likely to prejudice the prosecution of any proceeding in relation to the matters referred to in report. That everybody knows what I say. So there's nothing here. The matter was referred to the Director of Corruption Prosecution and the recommendation of the Director of Investigation. Following the conclusion of his investigation with respect to possible breach of the Corruption Prevention Act, the Commission's Director of Corruption Prosecution, as in accordance with the aforementioned Section 54.3b and Section 54.4, reviewed the report and upon careful consideration determined that no viable charges can be laid. So I can't really... Yes, so at least something is here. For a change. For a change. Right. I won't go further. For a change, I say there's reference here.
One second. Let me just ask a question. And Ms. Curtis, you have to help me here. Once the report is sent to Parliament, the Speaker, the Clerk, and the Senate President would sit and review it and determine when it is tabled and what is tabled. I want to understand the process once you receive the documents from the Integrity Commission.
Once we receive it, then the Speaker and the President, they get their copies. And I have a stamp that I provide them with, and they sign on it for it to be tabled. I don't sit and look if they are reviewing it or what. It is sent to them and copied to me. I keep my copy and I send it to the library for all and sundry to see.
Chairman, I would say in the future, the cover letter should be included. Had it been included, I don't think a lot of this issue would have arisen. So I'm suggesting that not only report be laid, but the cover letter also. Because I've seen cover letter laid before, I'm certain. I've read cover letter and report here before. So I'm suggesting, recommending that in the future, all cover letters accompany the report.
They have been. They have always been. But people are only interested in the report, so they ask for it.
Right. So that's a recommendation that we'll make to the clerk. Yes.
No,
So I think we had
I'd asked before.
We had Member Warmington,
And
then Member Chuck, in that order. But I'm not sure what happened in the interim.
No, I haven't touched my
Oh, you have.
issues
Okay.
yet. They're just
Proceed.
based on what I said.
Member
Through you,
Warmington.
Chairman, to the Director, Executive Director. The Interim Commission is supposed to be impartial and biased and about politics. Is that the case currently? The question was directed to the Executive Director. Through the Chairman.
What is he asking, Chair?
Repeat the question.
So it means that my question importance, I'm listening to it. I said the Integrity Commission is expected to be impartial, unbiased, and about politics. Is that the case currently?
Absolutely.
All right. Is there anyone on your team, whether director or employee, who is viewed as what they call PIPS, and that is politically exposed person, whereby if they open an account or doing anything like this, they have to declare that to the bank? Is there anybody on your team?
I think the term PPs are applicable to all of us.
No, I'm asking a simple question. They
I
said
answered
political.
you.
All right.
I answered you.
Is there anyone in your team that would have declared that they have political connections? Political exposed person?
My understanding of the term PP is that if you hold a high government office, then you have to disclose us.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
No, you have to disclose if you are politically connected. That's why it's a person exposed, politically exposed person. Are you politically exposed? No. So you not complete this section of the form.
Sir, let me say something to you. And I wouldn't want to say this, but I have to say it. I've never voted.
I didn't ask you that. I'm not interested.
Please,
I asked a simple question. Chairman,
please,
I asked a simple question.
Do not impute political
Members, I will not entertain the cross
Right,
talk.
I asked a simple question.
If the member asks a question,
you answer it.
A reply is given, and then we move on, please. Thank you.
All right, it doesn't want to answer it. Let me go further then. All right? What it says here is that Mr. Just hold on. It says that Mr. Rand Evans, Director of Corruption Prevention, is one member of your team. And what it said that he was employed to Dr. Peter Phillips in a political capacity as advisor. I understand he was employed to Mrs. Portia Miller. I don't have that firm information. But I have it here that he was employed to Dr. Peter Phillips in a political capacity as an advisor. You are the person answering the questions.
I'm not answering that question, sir.
So you cannot say that your department is about politics.
Please, members, we have to bring some
once,
decorum here. Member, please.
I take that back.
But I think in fairness, Director, questions are asked, you answer or you decline, and let's do it with civility.
Because that's one been doing it. The issue is, Mr. Chairman, is that
he's asking about the political persuasion of a particular person, and that's not my business.
But then why employ him if he's involved politically? That's what I'm asking you. You say there's no political bias there. He was employed to Dr. Peter Phillips in a political capacity as an advisor, and it's right here in front of me.
Chairman,
it's in front of me.
Chairman, respectfully, he has asked a question about an individual who, from his job description, right, has nothing to do with any of the reports that have been tabled, brought, etc., right? I don't know why we're pursuing this line against a particular individual. If the member has something specific related to how that person has executed his job and that he has done so with bias, then that's different. But to go back and be asking somebody what their previous thing may be, I don't know how relevant that is.
How do you think Jamaica will look at it then when you understand that someone who was politically connected, political advisor to someone in politics, happened to be a director of corruption investigation? That's what I'm talking about. This department is tainted.
No.
Certainly.
The person who you named, his title is Director of Corruption Prevention, Stakeholder Engagement, and Anti-Corruption Strategy. As far as I know, and I know in my capacity because I participated in training organized by the Integrity Commission, that was the role the individual played.
Yes.
The individual don't play a role in determining who must be investigated, don't play a role in determining what report must come here, don't play a role in whether anybody must be prosecuted. So I don't know why we're going down this road to persecute somebody. It's not right.
As he given up his political connection and activity.
I want to rule on that.
As he given up his political activity and activism.
Member, I think you stated the point, and I believe that that's not the road you want to go down at this time. I think that information with regards to members of the commission and their antecedents are also part of what, as an oversight committee, you would have an interest in. But I don't want it to be felt that there is any intention to go after an individual, as is inferred by another member of the team. I wouldn't want our discussions to be relegated to that
Chairman,
level.
I'd raise a point of order, because we are all abiding by your opening statement, which is that we're not here to prosecute or persecute anybody. We are here to try to make the office far more effective, and so that we can prevent corruption in this country. And in that way, I believe that we have to conduct ourselves with some decorum.
The issue is I just wanted an answer. No, I just wanted an answer because this is, it helps to see whether there is impartiality, in the whole unbiased and the whole performance and operation of the department. That's all I wanted to know. And I asked the question.
I believe that in
and
fairness,
I asked if there was any political connection or connectivity, and he refused to answer because he knew long ago.
Member, it is not for us to impute motives. And so I think that you've made a point. And are there any further questions that you have?
Chairman, I have a few questions.
Sorry, may I formally recognize you, Member Chuck?
I have a few questions for the Executive Director. Could you say, Executive Director, when did you become aware of the report before us, the Westcon report? When did you become aware of that report? Use the mic.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at a timeline. I have a timeline here.
It was tabled in October 2022. Yes. Was it around the same time?
October
2022, that's the date.
No, it wouldn't have reached me then, because it would have been submitted to the commissioners. That would have been on the 16th of January. Yeah. Right, Director Kevin? Thanks. Chair, I just got a note, and I think it's important to put it on the record. The law prescribes a process for the appointment of directors and the executive directors.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
I was reading a note from
and I got one
clock.
too.
Yes,
and
okay.
I thought it was important.
Yes, so please repeat your response.
The law provides for the prescribed process for the appointment of the statutory directors and the executive director, who are appointed by His Excellency. And in the case of all the directors and executive director, the commission makes a recommendation to His Excellency. And there are specific matters which have to be taken into consideration to guide the commissioners in their choice. I know for a fact that everybody who is here, who is appointed, perhaps except Director Keisha, she can correct me if I'm wrong, because she was seconded from the office of the DPP, right? But for myself, Director Beresford, yes, subsequently appointed, but I'm talking now about the recruitment process. We all went through a recruitment process where we applied for the jobs, and it was an independent entity, and went through. Now I can speak for myself. After that, I was interviewed by the commissioners, a group of commissioners, along with someone from the Officers Service Commission, a competitive process, and then of course issues of character, integrity. Those are matters that the commissioners are required to take into consideration before making a recommendation to His Excellency. So, with respect to the questions that and as far as I recall, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's a constitutional right for someone to have a political view. And I'm speaking to you, Chair. And to the extent that there's a concern, I think that's a concern that should be addressed with the commissioners.
Okay.
Not
can I continue now? What? Wait. No, I'm asking when was the report of
the first time that I really paid attention to it was when it came with the ruling, which would be in January of this year.
So it was the commissioners who directed it directly to the Director of Corruption Proceedings?
As she explained the process, the investigation report comes to the Director of Investigation, to her. She reviews the report, and you make a ruling. And the ruling is sent on a confidential and private cover to me, just as a medium, to the commissioners. And my timeline that I have here tells me that that occurred on January 16. Right? Yeah, January 16. So it was transmitted to me from her for transmission to the
but my next question is...
Sorry, January 12th. I got it at 8:20 p.m. on January 12th, and I forwarded it to the commissioners at 9:20 p.m. So Thursday.
That's the Director of Corruption Proceeding?
No.
Corruption.
The ruling came from her through me to the commissioners. She sent it to me at 8:20 p.m., and I sent it to the commissioners at 9:20 p.m. Okay. I would not have read it.
No. The Director of Investigation having submitted a report, why was it not tabled within a reasonable time? Was it awaiting the ruling of the Director of Corruption Prosecution? It was awaiting a ruling. Good
question, Member Chuck. As we had indicated previously, and I don't know if it was very clear or explicit, the report and the transmittal letter with the indication of your ruling was sent to Parliament on the 16th of January.
No, wait.
Okay.
No, we're going back a little bit. We're going back before that. So it was awaiting a ruling of the Director of Corruption Proceedings. Now, obviously, the IC, Integrity Commission, must have seen this ruling as an important part of the process. Section 54(4) says that anything that the Director of Corruption Proceedings, once it is not prejudicial, it can be a part of the report. Now, a ruling that says no prosecution should take place for conflict of interest is not prejudicial. So why was it not then a part of the corruption part of the report?
Through you, Chair, if I may. So the functions are very distinct. So the Director of Investigation completes a report. That report, once passed to the Director of Corruption and Prosecution, is merely assessed. It's not edited or changed in any way by the DCP.
No,
the transmission letter.
I accept that. And that's why I'm directing the question to the Executive Director. Because Section 54, everything through you, Chairman. Because if there's nothing prejudicial, Section 54 says it can be tabled with the report. So it's only when there's any content that is prejudicial that it must not be tabled. Your ruling is that there should be no prosecution which is not prejudicial, and therefore Section 54(4) allows it to be tabled with the report. Am I right, Executive Director?
Not a question for me, Member Chuck. Investigations fall on the Director of Investigation, who has an interface with the commissioners.
But with due respect, Executive Director, you're the head.
No.
You're the head of operations.
No, sir. You are not listening at the outset. I said that we have distinct divisions and they're independent.
But with due respect.
Let me explain, Member Chuck, because you do not understand. Section 29 speaks, you have a copy of that. It speaks to the functions of the Executive Director. Subject to Section 34(3).
No, please. I don't really. No, please.
You don't know what it is, sir.
I know what it is. No, but with due respect, Executive Director.
Member Chuck, Chair, can you give me an opportunity? Because it's very important. Subject to 34(3), the Executive Director shall A, be responsible for the day-to-day management of the affairs of the Commission, other than those that are specifically assigned under this Act to a Director. That's what it says. Investigations are assigned by law to the Director of Investigation. Corruption, prosecution matters are specifically assigned by law to that person. I am a conduit, and I try to lay that groundwork at the outset.
All right, let me ask another question.
There's a misunderstanding in the public sphere about this, and it's unhelpful because a lot of persons have gotten to the point, because of this very misunderstanding, that the Executive Director of the Integrity Commission is responsible for all of these things, and he has no authority. I am merely a conduit, and that has been explained.
But what you're saying, with due respect then, Executive Director, if you are not the coordinating body of what is happening, you only need an administrative assistant or administrative officer to do the operation within the Commission, with due respect. So the question I really want to ask, let me ask you slightly, when were you aware of the ruling of the Director of Corruption Proceedings?
And I answered you, sir, when it was conveyed to me for transmittal.
So you were aware that she recommended no prosecution?
Yes.
On the 12th?
Yes.
12th of January?
Yes.
Okay, right. So she has so recommended?
Yes.
Don't you think in discussion with the commissioners, you could easily have said Section 54(4) allows that ruling, not the content, but at least to say that no prosecution should take place, to be a part of that report?
Member Chuck, I think we need to go back and explain something to you. I said it at the outset. The Commission operates differently from other organizations, right? I explained to you that there are 3 committees of the board to whom each statutory director reports, and each of those committees has 3 commissioners on it. In the case of the Prosecution and Corruption Investigation Committee, on that committee is chaired by Justice Lloyd Hibbert, retired Supreme Court judge.
I understand.
Yes, but the question you're asking me is if I should not be telling them what the law says.
All right.
The point I'm trying to make that is not my purview.
Okay, but
it's the purview
you are
of the committee.
But between you are the legal counsel. Would
you
agree?
I am not the legal counsel.
You have some knowledge of law, then, right? You have to
Sorry,
acknowledge
sorry. Can I?
With due respect.
Sorry,
Can I
Chair.
continue?
Just a minute. Let me just intervene to ask. I think a question that. Director, who sends the report to the Parliament? Over whose signature is the report presented to Parliament?
The cover letter is signed by me. And the point that I'm trying to make is that...
Does that make you responsible?
No, I'm a conduit.
Who is responsible?
The commission in the final analysis determines what happens and when it happens. I have a timeline here with...
I have a few more questions. No, please. I want to finish up. No, would you agree with me, Executive Director? Would you agree with me, Executive Director, that ruling that there should be no prosecution based on Section 54(4) could have been a part of that report?
You know, remember, Chuck, the question that you're asking me, my opinion is irrelevant.
You don't think it's irrelevant?
It is irrelevant because I have no locus standi with respect to the matters that you're raising.
All right.
It seems that you have a fixation that these are issues that must be addressed or by the ED or that the ED...
But I see. You are the face of the IC.
Can you show me the law where it says
You
that?
are the face of the IC. I have to ask you these
You are
questions.
making me the face of the IC.
May I say, Executive Director?
Minister of Justice, and the law is here, and it's very clear and explicit in its terms.
1 second.
And that's what we are guided by.
You said you know of the report and the contents of the ruling. That report was tabled on the 14th of February and hit the headlines across Jamaica and across the world by Reuters' report. You're aware of that? Now, in light of the fact that you knew the content of the ruling, do you think it was appropriate for you to be tweeting the Reuters report?
Can I answer the question?
Yes.
Opportunity to answer the question. There is a... First, I'll start with the tweets that the Commission did, actual retweets. The Commission has a Twitter social media policy. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I'm not on social media.
Okay, well, I'm telling you. You're on Twitter. You follow me. You're on Twitter.
No. My staff is on Twitter. I don't even know what Twitter is.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? And members, could you please indulge me? The letter that we...
No, I would like to... No, please. I would just like to finish up.
Oh, sorry.
One more question. One more question.
When you finish.
I would like to ask, following as a corollary to that, you know of the ruling of the Director of Corruption proceedings. The opposition had a press conference that day indicating that the Prime Minister should step aside until there's a ruling of the Director of Corruption proceedings. You knew of the ruling, yet you tweeted what happened at the press conference. And you could easily, you knew, but you retweeted what came from the lead of the opposition press conference, knowing full well that the ruling has been made with the opposition was totally unaware that a ruling has been made. And you can understand why my colleagues in the opposition were most embarrassed. Most embarrassed. Because you knew, yet you were tweeting what they said wrongly. And you were tweeting. You could easily have said or indicated that if you contact the Clerk of Parliament, it would have said that a ruling has already been made. Or you could beg the Commission, beg immediately to say a ruling has already been made. But you, the Executive Director, you're tweeting not only the Reuters report, you're tweeting what the press conference of the opposition Do you consider that appropriate?
Can I answer now,
Sure.
Member Chuck? The Commission issued a statement on February 17th, and I alluded to something in my opening remarks. I just want to go back to it. The Integrity Commission wishes to stress that the Integrity Commission Act makes the various directors independent of each other. The ruling of the Director of Corruption Prosecution in a matter does not change the content of the report of the Director of Investigation. They are independent in their operations. The Office of the Contractor General's functions have been now subsumed into the Division of the Investigation Director. And what was previously DPP's functions have now been assumed by the Director of Corruption Prosecution. I make the point because although they now fall under the Integrity Commission, the fact is that they are distinct divisions. And we have a social media policy which says that we will retweet on the work of the divisions. I'm answering you. Member Chuck, you cannot ask a question and then seek to answer it. You have to allow me to answer it. And if you may not want to hear the answer. Okay. You need to get a grasp of the structure of the Commission. They are independent divisions, and essentially what the commissioners themselves said, even in a situation where the Director of Corruption Prosecution has ruled that she's not pressing the charges, their position is that the investigation report stands on its own. Now, we have a Twitter policy which requires us or which allows us to tweet on the work of the Commission. And we have always done that. As a report comes out, we don't tweet on it, we retweet on it.
Chairman, can you...
But you mean you want me to finish my answer, sir? Yes. And you're getting it.
The 14th to the 15th of February, where the report is out worldwide, and we have no problem with the report. But at the same time, you, Executive Director, knew that a ruling was made which, in my own feeling, neutralizes the report. Reuters and the world have it that the Prime Minister of Jamaica, head of the country of government in Jamaica, has been referred to the Director of Corruption Proceedings. You knew that there's a ruling. Don't you think it would be appropriate to immediately tell the world that there's a ruling not to proceed? And the converse, don't you think it is most inappropriate for you to be tweeting Reuters and also the misinformation or the misleading to the opposition?
Again, Member Chuck, the report stands on its own feet and the ruling stands on its own feet. Member Chuck, can I just finish? What you're not saying is that, and I want to make this very clear, the Commission retweeted. Can I complete my statement, Chair? The Commission retweeted the Gleaner story on the 15th, the Jamaica Observer story, and on the same date, it retweeted the PM's rejection of the report. The story that you mentioned about the opposition leader, that was also retweeted. And then on the following day, Nationwide's rejection, story on the rejection report was also retweeted on the February 15th. And the next day, the ruling, we retweeted the ruling, the Gleaner story on the ruling and the Observer story on the ruling. That has not been mentioned. And then I, on my personal Twitter account, retweeted the IC stories in addition to the Reuters story on the matter. 95% of my tweets are international stories. The simple point I'm trying to make, Member Chuck, is that I think, perhaps you're drawing a distinction in terms of the subject of the report, But the point I'm trying to make is that if you do a historical analysis of the retweets on the IC's account, you will see that every investigation report that goes out, we retweet the stories on it. And I mentioned earlier on the fire trucks and the Petrodam stories, those were also retweeted, despite the fact that the covering letters, the transmitter letters for those reports make reference to the indication of the DCP's ruling. It may not be the answer that you want to hear, but to me, the mischief is not tweeting. Once a report is tabled, it becomes subject of public commentary. Section 53.3 says you can't comment on a story until it's tabled. And we have to be careful of the road you're going down, because if what you're now saying is that when the report is tabled, the gleaner can't comment on it, observer. No. Member Chuck, let me finish. Because that's exactly what has happened. They have commented on the report, and we have retweeted the comments. If you say an individual cannot comment, then you're denying that person their constitutional right.
Chairman, please.
I think
please.
I have one final statement.
Get my question.
Chair, I have one final statement. One final statement. The mischief here is not about persons commenting on the investigation reports. It's already established that is an independent division to the Corruption and Prosecution Division. And if we do not fix the mischief which has created all of this, which is that the reports are not coming out at the same time, then you're going to have this with the next one. The report comes out, the ruling doesn't come out, and persons are going to comment and tweet and report on the report, and then until the ruling comes out. And, that could take several months.
Exactly. No, please, Chairman, can I just note? I just want my question answered.
I have a comment to make with regards to Section 54.4 at the end of the session.
Okay.
I just wanted to be very clear that subsection will in fact form a part of the review process. In the interim, there are interpretations that could be had of it, and that we have to look at and clearing the path for the future, because this is part of what today is about. There can be no misinterpretation of it.
No, Executive Director, my question is direct. I don't have any problem with once the report is tabled, once something is tabled, you retweet the Gleaner, the Observer, and it can, once it is tabled. My concern is your behavior, Executive Director, your behavior, where you knew of the ruling and you're retweeting and misleading not only Reuters and the world by retweeting Reuters, but also the opposition party who did not know that there's a ruling, had a press conference, called for the Prime Minister to step aside, yet knowing full well that there's a ruling, you retweeted that. Do you consider that behavior appropriate?
Member Chuck, there's an oath that we all take, and it's to discharge our functions faithfully. I told you that the Executive Director and the Directors, their oath is administered by His Excellency the Governor General. I, as the Executive Director, am required to administer the oath to all members of staff. And there's one thing that I always say, that we will discharge our functions fearlessly and fairly in the interest of Jamaicans. We are blind to everything else. And as I've indicated to you, if you do a historical analysis of the Integrity Commission's Twitter page, you will see that we retweet news stories with respect to our reports. We do not make comments. I do not make comments. We merely retweet them. And all I'm saying is that you need to focus upon the proximate cause of this issue. And the proximate cause of this issue is the fact that you have an investigation report going out today. That report could have gone out in October. You have one going out today and another one going out tomorrow. During that time, there's going to be commentary. And you can't restrict people from commenting. You can't do that. So I get what you're saying is that, you know, what the preferred thing to do, Chair, and I'm humbly requesting that this is something that the Commission pays attention to. The committee, the Commission is already on record, and I can say this on behalf of the Commission, that it is quite prepared to subscribe to an amendment of the law where both are done at the same time. And I just want to make one clarification before I conclude. I refer to 3 reports that were sent to this House in which there was an indication of the DCP's ruling. I refer to the Westcon report, but it was taken back. So you're not going to find that letter unless the envelope was opened and a copy was made of it. When the investigation report was subsequently submitted, the commissioners were still perusing the ruling. So there will be no indication in that letter of the ruling, the indication of her ruling. The other 2, which will be Petrojam and the Petrojam 3 and the fire trucks, those reports were submitted on a cover of a transmittal letter on January 5. Those 2 transmittal letters will make reference to the indication that the DCP had determined that no charges can be laid. I have copies here, but as you say, you want to have your own copies. So I just want to make that clear, just in case.
I just want a simple. No, that.
Yes, Chair. Yes, and I can make that clarification. If you go on my Twitter page, and I have erased nothing because I have nothing to erase. And if you go on the Commission's Twitter page, the Commission's Twitter page will show on February 15 that the Commission retweeted the Gleaner story on the report, the Jamaica Observer story, the Gleaner story, and then, the Gleaner and Jamaica Observer stories. The story that Member Chuck alluded to, which is a Gleaner story, and the rejection of by the Prime Minister of the report, that was also retweeted on February 15th. Nationwide story was also rejected by the Prime Minister, that was also tweeted. I've commented, and then on February 16th, we retweeted the ruling, the story carried by the Gleaner and the story carried by the Observer. And then those stories were retweeted by me on my personal account. And in addition to that, the Reuters story. I tweet international news, retweet international news. For clarification, no comments were made, absolutely none. And on the IC side, I'm just going to read something to you here, it's important. And anybody who goes on the Integrity Commission's Twitter page right now, at the very top, you will see Twitter media policy. What we did was that we took the Serious Fraud Office's Twitter policy. Serious Fraud Offices are our counterpart in the United Kingdom, and we built upon their framework in terms of a policy. That policy was approved by the Commission's board on September 24, 2021, a year and a half ago. It's still version 1. We haven't amended it. And this is what guides us. And I just want to read this. What we will tweet, we will seek to educate and inform you about the Commission, its mandates, its enforcement powers, its work, and its anti-corruption initiatives. We will also tweet or retweet on matters that are germane to the Commission's functions. It's very clear. Disclaimer, our tweets, retweets which contain third-party information are for information sharing and or educational purposes. There are no way meant to convey and infer, but this may not have anything to do with Minister Chuckson. So the point I'm trying to make is that, the simple point I'm trying to make, Chair, is that what we did with respect to this report, we have done with all previous reports. Yes.
And therefore, all the tweets that would be ascribed to you would be under your name and not the commissioner's.
Right.
And to find out whether the member was referring to comments made under your name
Yes.
and not the IC. I just wanted to.
Yes, except that the tweets, the retweets on my account are the same ones that are on the IC's account, plus the Reuters tweet. Yes. No, there was no comment. These are retweets of stories. Yes. Yes.
Just a final repeat. I would like an answer, Executive Director. But I don't get an answer. One second, with due respect.
Getting the answer you want,
no,
member.
The answer can either be yes, no, or I won't answer. The press conference where the opposition party said the Prime Minister must step aside until there's a ruling of the Director of Corruption Proceedings. You knew there was a ruling, yet you retweeted what happened at the press conference. The simple question is, was it appropriate for you to retweet that?
I'm going to answer again, Member Chuck. You can't ask a question and determine what answer is going to be. I've given you my answer. You may not like it, but that's my answer. And let me just say something for clarification. At the point in question, the ruling from the Commission had not been published. What's that? It had not been published.
Knew the content. You told us you knew the content.
I beg your pardon, sir?
In your letter to the Clerk of Parliament, it said that there will be no prosecution. Your letter signed said that there will be no, the ruling was made, and that it won't be going further. I just saw the letter.
Member Chuck, we can continue this, but I've given you my answer, sir. Thank you.
Minister Chuck, you're finished with your question. Sorry, so...
Thank you, Chairman. I had wanted...
And then I think Member Warmington and afterwards, yes.
I had wanted a clarification when Member Robinson was asking a question, specifically about the roles and functions. And I want to just zero in on the role of the commissioners. I used to be an executive director for the Fair Trading Commission, and the role seemed very different. We used to do our investigations, and we would report to the commissioners as if they were a tribunal, a quasi-judicial body. My understanding is that this is not so for the IC, that your investigators are themselves the people who are responsible for determining the outcome of investigations, and that they pass a report to the commissioners, but the commissioners can't change those reports. There can be inquiries, and which could lead to change. But your commissioners, your investigators, which include the Director of Prosecution, they are wholly independent, and no commissioners can review and change reports. Once the reports are finalized, that is the end of the matter, and that you are a postman that will pass the reports to them and then to Parliament. That is my understanding of the role of the commissioners vis-a-vis the independent investigators.
With one or two adjustments, Member Paul, if I may. The Section 30 of the Integrity Commission Act outlines the general, it refers to the three statutory divisions: the Information and Complaints Division, the Corruption and Prosecution Division, and the Investigation Division, and any other division that the Commission may deem necessary. And I told you that we created a fourth division, the Corruption Prevention Division. So there are four there. And what it says is that subject to Section 34.3, this is now Section 30, subsection 3, and I think this goes straight to the question that you're raising. To what extent are they independent? Subject to Section 34.3, and I'll tell you what 34.3 shortly, the performance of the functions of the director of each division shall be subject to the specific or general direction of the Commission. You see my point?
Yes, it's a specific now.
And general.
No, well, general, we know what that means.
But specific.
Yes.
They can single out something.
Yes.
I mean, depending on the interpretation, when I give this provision and say do this or do that, or do not do this or do not do that. 34.3, which is the exception, Director Keisha alluded to it before, but that's the one which says, for the avoidance of doubt, except as provided in subsection 1A, which says that she conducts or prosecution proceedings, the Director of Corruption Prosecution shall not be subject to the direction or control of any person or body in relation to the conduct of his prosecutorial functions under this Act. And then it goes on to state that she's only subject to the DPP. And they make another exception, and this is where now it comes back to the issue of the rulings. She does a ruling, but can the Commission review it? Listen to this. Section 34.4. Without prejudice to the provisions of subsection 1, which gives her authority, the Director of Corruption Prosecution may, acting on his, and his here means her as well, acting on his own volition or upon the request of the Commission, request an opinion from the DPP as to whether or not to initiate criminal proceedings in respect of any matter. So the point I wanted to make is that even after the DCP contemplates and comes up with her ruling, the Commission has the authority, they have the power to say, okay, hold this, I want to look at it. Or if it's gone to Parliament, pull it back, which is what happened in the Westcon case. I need to spend some time on this. And that is the only way that they can get to a position as to whether or not they determine if it's something they would want to ask her to seek a second opinion from the DPP for. And I should mention that once the Commission exercises that discretion, which it has that authority, then they're bound by the DPP's ruling and pursuant to the Constitution. So if they want to take a month, 2 months, 3 months to review it, then your question will have to be to them why you're taking so long, but they do have that authority under the law. And I just want to make one other point with respect to the powers that the DCP has. It says that she should not be subject, shall not be subject to direction or control of any person or body in relation to the conduct, I'm quoting, of his prosecutorial functions, the conduct. No prosecutorial functions have yet commenced. So up until that time, one could put forward an argument that the commissioners are entitled to sit with her and discuss her ruling. I prefer to put it that way. And I can tell you, I sit at every board meeting. I've never missed one. And I think starting about 6 or 8 months ago, the commissioners have begun to invite each of the statutory directors to spend some time at the general board meeting to have discussions. Because remember, the board committees to which they report are composed of 3 commissioners, but there are 5. So I think that's a good thing because it develops a good interaction, and the other 2 commissioners who would not sit on the specific subcommittees would now have an opportunity to ask questions, and the directors. And so far, Director Kevin has met with the board a couple of times, and Director Keisha a few times. I think Director Craig is to meet with the board on Monday, and these are very cordial discussions, and, it builds a greater working relationship as well.
Chairman, I just want you to forgive me. I have to leave to prepare my integrity report by Friday.
Okay, so Member Warmington, then Member Robinson, and but he just closed.
Chairman, thank you. Through you to the Executive Director. In the cover letter that is sent here, and he mentioned, I've been tweeting. Did you tweet the content of that cover letter? When you talk about the report. The other one, he tweeted on his Twitter page, not the commission, that there's sufficient evidence to charge the Prime Minister, yet he is not charged. What I want to know, isn't this undermining the position of his Director of Corruption Prosecution, having ruled on it, and then he tweeted made this type of tweet? I want to know, isn't this undermining one of his own senior directors?
So is that a rhetorical question, or is it directed at the ED? You didn't quite make
Chairman,
it clear.
I said to you through to the Executive Director, but I'm sure you wouldn't answer that.
Of course I'll answer it. I've already told you what was tweeted. In fact, retweeted.
I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about the one you tweet on your personal Twitter page that you said there's sufficient evidence to charge the Prime Minister, yet he is not charged. That's what I'm saying on your Twitter page. I'm saying, isn't that undermining one of his senior director that made a ruling? He said they're independent, but then again, he come back with this.
What tweet is that, Member Warmington?
On your Twitter page.
No, tell me what
You forget what you tweeted?
No, please tell me what it is.
No, I just said...
I've already told you. No. I told you we retweeted stories, news stories. So tell me which one
No,
that
not
is.
retweeted. It's one that was tweeted on your Twitter page. I just tell you what it said. I wrote it down.
And which story is that? I'm asking you.
It's on the same situation I said.
I'm asking you which story it is, because we retweet stories. We do not make comments.
No, this is not retweet. This is not retweet.
Could you identify the tweet?
I don't have it in front of me now, but you know you tweeted it.
Well, then I have nothing to answer.
You have it in front of you now. You know it.
I have nothing to answer.
You know it. You know what you tweeted. That was a personal Twitter page, and you know what you tweeted. I'm asking you under your man, your own staff.
As the ED has said, he wanted specifics in terms of the tweet itself and when and where, and that detail, yes. Well, I cannot say that, but having regard to the point that you made, it is there on record, but the response of the ED is equally on record.
Chairman, could I just ask, so first question, could the clerk read the cover letter which was sent by the Integrity Commission to accompany the report? And secondly, could the Executive Director indicate what the social media policy is? I know it may be, I don't know how long that document is, but if you could give a summary. But I'd like to hear the content of that cover letter that was sent by the Integrity Commission.
I'd have to get it from the report. I don't have a copy of the report with me, neither the letter. The three that I circulated had the letters attached. I'd have to send for that one, the letter.
So where are they? But we just had them, didn't we just have it? Yeah, we don't have a copy of it. Huh?
No, he's asking for the separate letter.
Yeah, the cover letter.
Not the cover letter that
No, the cover letter that was sent by the integrity.
Yes.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Just to read what the cover letter said. That's what I'm
I
asking.
can read what a cover letter says, but the report the specific, I do not have that report in hand. I have other reports that have been sent, and they have the letters on them.
No, man, the one related to Westcon. Where's that? Where's that? Could I? That's the one I'm referring to. Yeah.
Oh, I know that's what you're referring
Yes.
to, but
I don't know what the difficulty
I was
is.
also interested in whether or not a letter separate from the report, which would come from the DSP, is that letter? Was it sent? Was it part of the
That's
report
why I
that would have
want to
been
hear
tabled
what
in the
is
House?
in, because I was told there was a 3-liner in that letter which referred to the DCP's ruling. So that's what I'm asking to be read.
Yeah, I heard that.
Right.
I heard that. The additional point we're making was that whether the DSP's letter itself shouldn't be tabled, and indeed if it was sent. Was it?
Sorry, Chairman, you're saying the letter from the DCP? Oh,
Yes.
that is sent directly to the executive director. And from that, he coins the transmission letter capturing what the decision or the course
Right.
is.
No, the reason I ask you this is
Yes,
it's
sir.
important in looking at 54.4
Yes, sir.
and to give guidance as to how we will have to amend that
I appreciate
particular
it.
provision.
Very well, sir. Might I also speak or just clarify, because Member Robinson might not have recalled that we indicated that there were 2 letters sent. One was recalled. The first one had the indication. The second one that subsequently made its way to tabling did not.
One is January 16, one is February 13.
This one here is, no, this is Petrojam. The reason I want it, Chairman, is just for us to be guided so we can guide the Integrity Commission about what should be in that cover letter. That's why I really wanted to see it, so I know whether it covers what the DCP had actually said.
So I think we've...
Well, my second question relates to the social media policy, which I
Yes.
would like to hear something about in terms of what guides the Commission and the directors and the commissioners in terms of how they treat with social media.
Sure, Member Robinson. And you follow me, and I think you follow the IC.
I do.
Okay, I'm going to read it for you. It's 2 pages.
Okay.
But when next you go on Twitter, there will be a link right on the top of the profile page which says media policy. It has 10 sections. I can read it for you. General, the Integrity Commission's Twitter account is managed by the Commission's communications and public education functions. 2, limitations on information that we will tweet. I should perhaps say that this Twitter policy was approved by the board after several reiterations. The Integrity Commission and its officers are prohibited by law from publicly disclosing certain matters that are related to the Commission's operations. Consequently, should you wish to follow us, we will be limited in what we can say to you via this medium. 3, what will we tweet? We will seek to educate and inform you about the Commission, its mandates, its enforcement powers, its work, and its anti-corruption initiatives. We will also tweet or retweet on matters that are germane to the Commission's functions, inclusive of news, development, standards, and best practices in anti-corruption, good governance, and integrity. 4, response to tweets. As a matter of policy, we will not respond to individual tweets. Should you wish to seek information, file a report, make a complaint, or contact the Commission, please see below on how you can do this quickly and effectively. 5, following. We will not automatically follow back new followers. Being followed does not in any way mean that we endorse the holder of the account. 6, disclaimer. Our tweets, retweets which contain third-party information are for information sharing and/or educational purposes. They are in no way meant to convey or infer or endorsement of or agreement with any information that is contained in the tweet, retweet, nor will it mean that we endorse the account holder of the tweet that has been retweeted. Monitoring. The Commission's Twitter account is generally managed and monitored during office hours on work days. We may, however, occasionally tweet outside of normal office hours. 8, lack of access to Twitter service. Twitter may occasionally be unavailable. The Commission does not accept responsibility for any lack of service or access that may result during the platform's downtime. 9, reporting allegations or making complaints of irregularity, impropriety, or corruption. The Commission's Information and Complaints Division, which is headed by Director Craig, is vested with the responsibility under law to record and receive any complaint, information, or notification regarding allegations of corruption, impropriety, or irregularity, or any allegation in respect of non-compliance with any of the provisions of the Integrity Commission Act. Members of the public are encouraged to tell us what you know. Your information is required by law to be treated by us in a secret and confidential manner. And then we have some links. Please click on this link to read our complaints policy. To make a complaint or to file a report with the Commission, please click on this link. And then final, the Commission's website. To contact the Commission to learn more about it or to peruse a host of associated resources, please visit the Commission's website at. And I just want to make one final comment. With respect to the matters that we tweet on, we said that we'll seek to educate and inform you about the Commission, its mandates, and it goes on. Section 6.1 of the Integrity Act sets out about 16 functions that the Commission has. The majority of them fall to public education, corruption prevention. And I want to say something that the 3 subcommittees that I alluded to that are manned by 3 commissioners each, the chairman of the commission, Justice Panton, asked me to sit on one. These are subcommittees of the board, but he asked me to sit on one having equal status as the other commissioners, and that one is corruption prevention and public education. And I made the point some time ago that what I do is in the form of public education, to educate people about anti-corruption, good governance standards, standards of integrity that prevail worldwide so that they know what's going on in the rest of the world. Now, that is nothing extraneous, and I want to bring us now to the law, the Integrity Commission Act. 6.1H, it says a function of the Commission, and this now falls to the very committee that I just alluded to, which is headed by Director Ryan, and on which I sit alongside with 3 commissioners, including the chairman of the commission. It says monitor current legislative and administrative practices in the fight against corruption. 6.1O, adopt and strengthen mechanisms for educating the public in matters relating to corruption. Let me repeat that. Adopt or strengthen mechanisms for educating the public in matters relating to corruption. And this all dovetails finally into advising the minister. And for us, the administrative minister for the Integrity Commission is the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Prime Minister, advising the minister on the adoption of international best practices relating to the prevention of corruption. Now, that is a task that I have alongside Director Ryan, sitting on the Corruption Prevention Committee is responsible for public education and identifying best practices around the world in anti-corruption. And I just want to say something, Member Robinson. I've been tweeting every single day, since 2013, 10 years. And I tweet on the very same things. International news having to do with corruption. I seldom tweet on Jamaica stuff. But what I try to do is to bring to my followers, and I have 17,000, a sense of what is happening in the rest of the world in terms of good governance standards. And the simple point I want to make is that that's a part of our mandate, as mandated by this Parliament. That's what we're required to do. And I would just want to add, and Director Ryan can back me up, for the last 4 or 5 meetings, they have mandated Director Ryan to begin to tweet in his personal capacity. Am I right, sir? You are correct. Let me repeat that. They have asked him, as a Director of Corruption Prevention, to get acclimatized to Twitter and begin to tweet in his personal capacity.
But why that versus the official Twitter account?
No, we're doing it on Twitter as well. Yeah. We're doing it on the official account. So I just want to make the point that, and I said this elsewhere, perhaps it offends some people, but this is a mandate of the Commission as dictated by our own parliamentarians. Monitor best practices in the fight against corruption. Adopt and strengthen mechanisms, and this is one, right, for educating the public in matters relating to corruption. And like I said, this Twitter policy, if you have some time, Member Robinson, when you do, just Google Serious Fraud Office and just look up their Twitter handle, and you can compare this Twitter policy with their Twitter policy.
I would recommend, just my advice, that the public education be done through the official Integrity Commission social media handles. As much as possible, I would restrict individuals doing it. I just think the environment that we are in, no matter what you do, it is going to be subject to so much interpretation. So, to be frank, I would say less is more. Less is more, right? And I understand the public education component, right? But even when you retweet international stories that people may think are connected to local, people draw inferences, right? So less is more. But I want to come back to this. So I have here the letter dated February 13th, which accompanied the report. And I am assuming this would have been the second letter after the first one was withdrawn. Right. So my question would be, why didn't this letter have the reference to the ruling made by?
For reason, the Commission was still deliberating over the ruling. So, pursuant to Section 54, the report, the law mandated that the report should be tabled. So the Commission instructed that the report should be tabled while they continued to peruse the ruling. Am I right? Yeah. And when they completed that exercise, they gave written instructions to me to consult with the DCP to get her authorization to proceed with the rulings. As a matter of fact, an email was sent by the chair to all the commissioners to say, well, it's about time that you complete your deliberations and advise the DCP of your positions. And again, that goes back to Section 34(4), which gives the Commission the authority, the power, to review the rulings to see if they want to have a discussion with her. And as it turned out, I remember we were having a leadership team meeting in the afternoon, and at the end of it... well,
let me say, as a chairman, as a recommendation, if the scenario you're outlining is what happened, then I believe that the report should not have been tabled when it was, and it should have awaited the decision of the DCP, meaning you should have waited, whether it is a couple of days or however long that deliberative period was to ensure that both things could have been done simultaneously.
And Member Robinson and Chair, through you, sir, that is what the Commission is saying. It has no objection to it. But as at now, the way the law is written, Section 54 mandates that the report must be tabled. And it doesn't refer anywhere to rulings. And that, as I said before, this Oversight Committee and the Joint Select Committee to review the Act are good mechanisms, because it forces us to see where the gaps and the lacunas and the contradictions and the conflicts in laws and the lack of harmony between one provision and another, and to work together to address them. And Chair, we're committed to that, because at the end of the day, we want to be part and parcel of an organization that is really effective in the fight against corruption. And the provision of the Integrity Commission Act, which speaks to the Oversight Committee, the primary duty of the Oversight Committee is to interact with the Integrity Commission to ensure the effectiveness of the Commission. The effectiveness, in other words, to elevate its effectiveness. And we are committed to that, sir.
Very well. Members, I think we've had a very long and fruitful interaction. I think there's quite a bit of new information and clarification that has been had, but I also think that out of it has come perhaps a determination that there are areas, particularly in terms of the reporting of the Commission to the Parliament in terms of the outcomes.
Chairman, before you close, there are some questions on this, what report I wanted to ask. No, there are some questions directly to the report I wanted to ask. That the public has a wrong impression on this report.
Well,
can I just ask them?
Member, I have no objections to your asking.
Chairman, the report here on this, well, Westcon Construction gave the impression to Jamaica that all the contracts or recommendation went directly to Westcon without any public tendering or limited tender. Yet on the report from the Commission, page 26, table 3, there were four tenders, or 4 submission of tenders, or contractors submitted 4 bids. Westcon was number 2, not number 1. There were, 10 bids were submitted. Westcon was not number 1, number 2. On page, their question we call discuss this one. Please, just let me just deal with please. No, please.
Just ask your questions as
right, that's what I'm
quickly
asking.
And clearly as you can.
Yes.
It's not intended to muzzle any member in this regard, but one has to bear in mind also
the time.
Exactly.
I won't take 2 minutes. Page 27, table 5. There are 5 contractors who submitted bid, not Western alone. Page 28, table 6, 9 contractors. Page 29, 6 contractors. That's for the Portmore Infant School. Western was not the only tenderer. Page 31, the Primary and Infant School. 6 contractors. Western was not the only tender. Page 32, the Derry Primary School. There were 9 tenderers. Westcon was not the only one. Page 33, Falmouth All-Age School. There were 7 contractors who tendered on that. Westcon was not the only one. Page 35, there were at the Madras All-Age School. There were 5 contractors tendered. Westcon was not the only one. Page 36, the Pricky Pole All-Age School, there was 8 contractors. Western was not the only one. But the impression given to the public that the Prime Minister's recommended Western for contracts here and there that breached the procurement procedures, which is not so. I've listed all of these contracts or tenders. That you have up to 10 contractors, minimum 6 contractors attended. But yet, the impression given to the public that the Prime Minister recommended Western as the sole contractors in these. I need for Jamaica to know it is not so. This is dishonest, to say the least.
Okay, so,
not require any answers today, but I just want to make it clear.
Okay, so a statement has been made. And there's a response to the statement. I'll accommodate it. If not, we'll move on.
Chair, question would have to go to Director of Investigation. But before he starts, I just want to make something clear, because perhaps there may be a lot of speculation out there about this particular report because of certain dates. The report apparently deals with contracts which were awarded in between 2006 and 2009. I was Contractor General between 2005 and 2012. Mm-hmm. That report was commenced in 2016, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
By the former Contractor General, Dirk Harrison.
Right.
This person, Director of Investigation, is what we call a legacy investigation. When he assumed office, he and I assumed office on the same day, on May 18th, 2020. That was a report that was already in train. That's very important for the Jamaican public to understand. It has nothing to do with him or with me. The investigation was commenced 4 years after I demitted office, and a lot of people out there may be under a different, with a different perspective. I will now pass across to Director Kevin if he wants to add anything.
Right.
else.
The sense I get just before from the statement is the question of the veracity of the report. And I don't know, but
thank you very much, Chairman. Through you, just to indicate. I'm Kevin Stevenson, Director of Investigation. I think, Chairman and members, the issue having to do with the timing of the publication of the ruling and the report has detracted from any discourse on the investigation report itself. Member Warmington indicated that the wrong impression has been given, but I don't believe that I have commented on the investigation report itself, or any member of the Commission has commented on the substance of the report. It's important to note that in the report, there are principally 3 entities involved: the Ministry of Education, the National Works Agency, and the Social Development Commission. The contracts in relation to the Ministry of Education and the National Works Agency, those contracts in the report has nothing at all in terms of conclusion to do with the Most Honorable Prime Minister. The substantive conclusions in the report on those contracts was really that the accounting officers in those entities at the time failed to comply with Section 29 of the Contractor General's Act by not disclosing in their quarterly contracts award report the contracts to the Contractor General. And that was a legal requirement under that legislation. When it comes to the question of the contracts, the 2 contracts awarded by the Social Development Commission, that is where there is a conclusion in respect of the Most Honorable Prime Minister. And the conclusion can be found at paragraph 5.1.8 of the report, which states, the Director of Investigation has found evidence which provides grounds for forming the view that the Social Development Commission acted upon the instructions which were conveyed by the Most Honorable Andrew Holness by way of letter dated December 20th, 2007, and September 23, 2009, and made payments to Westcon Construction Limited in the amount of $375,000 and $1,455,000 without the utilization of the mandatory formal Government of Jamaica procurement procedures. The payments were made by the SDC in respect of works which were stated to have been executed in the constituency of West Central St. Andrew. There is no allegation or finding in the report having to do with the contracts on the part of the Ministry of Education as not having gone through a formal tender process. However, the contracts in relation to the national works agencies, some of those contracts, when the documentation was requested, speaking to the procurement process, those documentation were not provided, and that is one of the difficulties that we had with the report. So it is important to note that the report only speaks to the Most Honorable Prime Minister in a very limited extent in terms of those, to a limited extent in terms of the contracts awarded by the Social Development Commission, and most of the report deals with the contracts having to do with the Ministry of Education, National Works Agency. The reason those contracts were identified is based on the allegation that was made that the Most Honorable Prime Minister was involved in influencing contracts being awarded to Westcon.
Withdraw that word about influence. Influence how? What you're saying does not negate what I read. What I'm saying, the impression was given overall that you never tender process. And all of these that are listed here is in your report. That they went to tender, you have to 10 person who tendered. So what I'm saying about Prime Minister influence how and where, his report to you is that he did not. But and your director of corruption person said that he did not. So don't use this word in this committee. Don't use that word about influence. Please. Your director of corruption prosecution said did not. So don't use it here.
Chairman, if you will allow me just to clear up that one point. No. As I indicated, there was no finding that the Prime Minister influenced the contracts that were awarded to Westcon from the Ministry of Education and the National Works Agency. There was no finding of that. So the report is quite clear on it, so I'm not sure who gave the impression. I'm sure I haven't spoken to that, neither in the report, nor in any release or publication, not in my personal capacity. So I'm not sure who gave that impression. The report stands on its own, it speaks for itself, and I would commend it to persons who are interested to read the report.
Chairman. Yeah, you can close it. Yeah.
Sorry, just to get your name properly, please.
Kevin Stevenson.
Mr. Stevenson, I have it correctly. Yes, that Mr. Stevenson is making the point that there is no report that indicated that the Prime Minister had any influence on the award of those contracts. Am I clear on that?
You're correct, Chair, with respect to the Ministry of Education and the National Works Agency.
All right, Chair, my final, I wanted to ask this question earlier. Can the Integrity Commission present a report to this committee indicating the matters, not the detail, the numbers of matters on the investigation, where you are in the process of investigation? I would also be interested in finding out how aged these matters are, meaning whether we're dealing with matters from 10 years ago, the last 5 years, etc., and where we're making progress. It's important because there is $1.2 billion that funds the commission, and I think the public needs to know. No, member, easy, no, man, easy. Member does talk, easy. Yeah, that the public has a right to know that there is value for what is being sent here. I don't know if you have the data here or whether it is something you need to provide to us.
You want to speak?
Through you, Chair. Member Robinson, I just want you to clarify for us, because matters that are being investigated are two in groups, two separate things. You have complaints that would normally go to the Director of Investigation, and then you also have statutory declaration matters. So we just want to clarify, which one do you want? Do you want the matters concerning the complaints, or you want both? Statutory declaration matters and also complaints.
I would say both. I think it would be useful to understand, like, if you get 100 complaints, how many of them, move to the level where you commence the investigation, and also on the statutory declarations. So you don't have to provide it now, but if you can provide that to the committee so that we know how you're progressing. And again, we're not asking for names. We just want to know in terms of numbers, and whether, reports, what are referred to the DCP decision, so we understand what the work of the commission is.
Chair, through you, to answer Member Robinson. Member Robinson, just to remind you that there's a protocol which is prescribed by the law, the second schedule, which says what goes in our annual reports. And we are guided by this in all our annual reports, over which this commission has jurisdiction to go through and ask questions. And we're about to submit, our annual report becomes due the third month following the end of the fiscal year, will be the end of June. And a lot of the things that you just spoke about, paragraph 3 of the second schedule, the following details with respect to matters investigated by the Commission. 1, the number of investigations commenced but not finally dealt with during the financial year. 2, the average time taken to deal with complaints and the actual time taken to investigate in a matter. And it goes on. So I don't know, Chair.
So when would that report would be tabled?
It will be tabled
anytime
in Parliament, no, the end of June. That's the deadline.
Oh, it's end of June.
And it will now cover the financial year, which is up to March.
March 31st?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so you have a 3-month window.
Right, and then that now comes under the jurisdiction of the Oversight Committee. So I'm just wondering if you would not prefer to stick with the protocol.
June is far away.
Well, I think here is a case where, this is the flexibility of this oversight committee comes in. And I think that in the instance where from time to time the committee may require information from you, it would be appropriate for you so to give. So as long as it is within your capacity to do, I would urge that, we are going to be having a series of meetings. After you've left, we will look at scheduling and so on, that you will be told. So if you can give an undertaking, for example, in this instance, to have that information ready for the next meeting, we would be very happy, in fact. Yes.
Chair, Director Kevin, you have the information. You could send that, soon?
Yes?
Well, we have it here. So
well, send it on. Yeah, send it to the.
Right. So you could send it to Ms. Bailey.
The cooperation we've been talking about, we will do that.
Well, that's what it is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think thanks again, members. I think we've come to the end of this element of the agenda. But just let me indicate by way of review and summation that we've decided, of course, that Section 54(4) will be revisited, and an appropriate recommendation would go to the JSC in that regard in the overall review of the statutory and legal arrangements of the Commission. Secondly, that we need to have the reporting procedure, I think, of the ED clarified, because it is important for the responsibility center to reside somewhere within the frame of the IC, and it is of some concern to us that the ED does not have, based on what you've said, the full responsibility for all the activities that the Commission undertakes from an administrative and procedural standpoint. So that the Commission does have responsibilities, we know, but the ED, we think, should have responsibilities for the general operation of the Commission, and of course the report that comes to us in the Parliament should reflect that. And finally, that the guidance that is offered in relation to social media and the use of Twitters should be, we want to commend to you. I think that is as strong as the Overview Committee wants to put it at this time. We commend it to you, and I think Member Robinson was pretty clear in that regard. And finally, of course, the request for an aging of a report on the aging of the investigations that you have been involved in. I think that's very important, especially as we look into the way forward, how to resource you better, and in fact, how to make it possible for greater efficiency to flow from your operation. I want to close by indicating to you that this committee is in fact committed to ensuring that the highest level of probity, the highest level of efficiency, and the highest level of performance is delivered to the country on the basis of our promise that we are going to make our democracy a showpiece to the world.
Thank you very much, Chair. We're fully supportive of all the recommendations that you've just articulated, and we'll work with you to accomplish those. I just want to ask you if you could do one thing to assist us, which is to give us that list of investigation reports that you want to consider in your meetings so that we can begin the process of summarizing them in the timelines that you want. So that report number one, you tell us which one, so Director Kevin's division can begin to working on that. Secondly, I just want to make a comment. You know, the Integrity Commission has always received support from the Government of Jamaica and the Ministry of Finance when it comes to resources. I want to state that categorically and unequivocally. We are grateful to the Minister and to his senior technocrats, including the Financial Secretary and her deputies. They've always been supportive of the Commission. We have had a challenge, Chair. The approved headcount of the Commission is 177. Our staff right now complement is just about 60% of that. And the problem that we have encountered was with respect to space. We identified space about a year and a half ago, and we had to build it out. And I'm happy to say that over the past 2 weeks, we have moved a number of divisions into this new space. We have kept the existing location, which is at Oxford Road. The investigation division will now be there. So we are now in a position to remove the bottleneck which has impeded the work, the efficiency, and the productivity of the Commission. We can now hire staff, and for those of you who are watching, in Sunday's newspaper, we started the first tranche of advertisements for staff. But just to give you a quick overview, Director Craig's division is literally built out. He has, I think, all his staff except one or two, three. The Finance and Accounts division, that's fully staffed. But Director Kevin's division, you're probably about just over half. Director Keisha probably has about a third of her staff. And it's 30%. This is very important, because we're looking at prosecutions, we're looking at investigations. Director Rand's division, which is corruption, prevention and stuff, he has less than half. He has 45%. So my area, I have about half. So we we're just past 5 years as an organization, but I also want to state that nobody in this room among the directors is more than 3 years in the commission. As a matter of fact, Director Kevin and I, 3 years will be me. Director Keisha, next month you'll be 3 years. Director Ryan will be 2 years this year. And Director Craig will be 3 years in July. So we are new, and we're working, we hear about a 1.2 billion budget. I want to clarify that. That's what's voted, but we hand back money, because that money is predicated on the assumption that you're going to hire 177 staff, and we have not been able to do that. So I just want to make that clarification. But we are now poised, Chair and honorable members, to really begin to see growth in the work and effectiveness of the organization, because we no longer have the bottleneck for space.
Chairman, in the budget, this says 1.2 billion for that department. Is it suggesting he needs some more? We have bridges to build, roads to do, water to go for poor people. Is he saying 1.2 billion? Is he crazy? When your poor people need roads, water, light, and all them stuff, housing, education, is that what he's trying to tell us? 1.2 enough money going to a legal department. That's wasting in that case, because I've seen a lot of stuff in the paper, advertisement in the paper daily. That's not necessary.
Chair, just on a point of clarification. No, Chair, no. We're not asking for more money. What I said was the 1.2.
Member, would you respect the chair?
We hand back money. And the money that has been voted is for 177. Now we have the 177 so we can spend the money. Nobody's asking for more money.
I think I'm not going to allow any more of the crosstalk, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, ED. Thank you, team. We appreciate the interchange, and we look forward to having you at future meetings in the normal way. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, Chairman. Before you adjourn, I certainly have some comments, okay? Closing remarks.
Yes.
This Parliament and this country must determine if we can have trust and confidence in this Integrity Commission after what we heard today. As Member Paulwell said, if the Executive Director, highest paid position, is nothing more than a postman, is not a coordinator of what takes place at the Integrity Commission, then what is the role? Secondly, Chairman, I am amazed that the Executive Director said that on the 12th of January, 12th of January, at 8:20 or 8:30, he got the ruling, which by 9:30 he passed on to the Commission, and he knew what the ruling was. Yet the impression has been given to this country by a tweet from the Executive Director retweeting the Integrity Commission on the 16th of February, where in that tweet, the impression is given that they have just received the ruling and have decided that it can now be posted. You remember that came on the 16th, when we are hearing from the Executive Director that that ruling was known from the 12th of January. Chairman, it's quite clear to me that in this particular matter, there needs to be an inquiry of what took place in providing the report and how the ruling was dealt with. Because any reading, and I have never commented on it, and that's why I kept my cool, so that I can comment on it, because Section 54(4) allowed that ruling, or even the decision of the Director of Corruption Proceeding, to be a part of that report. Chairman, this country image has been damaged. With respect, the parliamentary opposition were undermined because that ruling was not a part of that report. And so, Chairman, I am really very disappointed that what was happened there today, where you hear what was said, that the country must really determine whether how this commission is composed can really continue. And we want, and I speak for myself, but I hope I speak for all parliamentarians in Jamaica, we want an integrity commission that can prevent and wipe out corruption. But I'm not too sure that how it is composed, Chairman, is the way to go, and I'm very happy that there is this body looking at this, this legislation. So let it never be said that we don't want an integrity commission that can carry out its work, give value for the 1.2 billion they're getting, but the country and this parliament must really ask itself the question whether or not what happened there today, we can have trust and confidence in the present Integrity Commission as it is composed.
Chairman, let me say, I've spent most of my time focusing on process to understand how their process works. It is clear to me that outside of legislative changes, there are some process changes that we can recommend that will improve the efficiency of how they operate. In the particular instance of Westcon, the first cover letter had a specific reference to the DCP's ruling. The second one didn't. And the executive director explained that the commissioners were deliberating on it. Well, again, in a scenario like that, I believe they should have awaited the completion of that deliberation before tabling the report. So I think, it is our responsibility to provide the guidance, to provide the support in terms of process. I really, on the issue of social media, my firm view is less is more. The official Integrity Commission page should be the channel used, and really, if you want to do public education, do it there. But, in a polarized country, people are going to draw inferences and motives even when you are retweeting international reports, if they believe it is something that accords to something that may be happening locally. So, I think we have to guide them. And I also think the executive director needs to tweet less, quite frankly, and make the official integrity handle the most of the tweeting. So we don't have issues in that regard. But I'm firmly of the view that there are areas of improvement that we need to make, and not imputing motive to what took place, but we need to make the recommendation so it can operate more effectively and efficiently.
Any other comment? I just want to indicate that the minutes will reflect what the thinking of the committee has been today. And as chairman of the committee, I'm required to make report to Parliament on the deliberations of the committee from time to time, and I certainly will make the report at the next sitting of the House in relation to the Oversight Committee as a regular sessional committee, and the recommendations that are made here will, of course, be part of that report. A motion of adjournment? Did I hear that? This meeting is adjourned for a date to be fixed.